Hello. Happy Sunday, beautiful people. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, whatever day it is, where you are and where you may be watching this. It is good. I know it's good. And I'm happy to be here with each and every one of you as we continue to move forward with this series and with this message. I would love for you to join me in beginning by centering ourselves with this centering prayer. So please repeat after me. I welcome the spirit of truth into my mind and let it grow in my heart. Thank you, God, in, through, and as me. Amen. Ashe. And so it is. So it is. Yes, yes. And so, as we always do, I want to start by reviewing last week's message, which we began last week with the message, "The time to prepare is now." And I shared a quote, which is the quote that kind of anchors this series and inspired this series by Doug Copeland. If you don't have a spiritual practice in place when times are good, you can't expect to suddenly develop one during a moment of crisis. And one of the things I said that sometimes folks can hear that and it's like, oh, well, I guess I should just give up, right? I didn't establish one and now I'm in crisis. But it's actually the admonishment to develop a spiritual practice, but recognize that if you are in a space where times don't feel good, or if you're in a space where you feel like you're in a crisis, it's going to be a little slow going as you develop that which you need. And so the wisdom is when things are going well, make sure you're leaning into your practice. In that sermon, I also said, no human is immune from the varying crises of the human experience. What we as spiritual beings having a human experience must know and embrace is that our power comes from within. In order to know and make use of this power, we must connect with it daily and intentionally. So lean into your daily spiritual practice. The goal of your daily spiritual practice is not to get something. The goal is to connect to the greater, deepest aspect of yourself, which we call God. The goal is healing from the inside out. The goal is to attend to your inner health and happiness. The goal is to plug into power. And I also shared 2 resources. You can go to the home page of our YouTube channel and access the class that we taught on the daily spiritual practice, Transform Your Day in Just 15 Minutes, the powerful daily spiritual practice of 555. And I also encourage you to lean into the study series of the month, Sermons to Get You Through the Storm. That playlist is also available on our YouTube channel, on the homepage of our YouTube channel. So I want you to consider something, and this is something that I think we all understand, whether you're a homeowner or not. We all know that weatherproofing your home is important. Not only does it protect your home from damage, but it increases comfort and can lead to savings in energy costs. Depending on where you live in the world or what season you may be experiencing at a given time, the steps you will take may look different. In the winter, you're focused on keeping the cold air out and the heat in. You're making sure the home is properly insulated, particularly your windows and doors, to keep drafts out. In the summer, you're focused on keeping the house cool, as well as protecting from rain events and flooding. If you're in an area that experiences hurricanes or earthquakes, you're taking specific and certain steps to ensure protections and the resiliency of your property. But no matter what season you may be in, the roof and the gutters will always need to be properly maintained. And so we understand that then being a home or property owner comes with great rewards and great responsibility. Yes, yes. Now, again, you may or may not be a homeowner, but each of us are the owner of something far more valuable than any real estate on planet Earth. You are the owner of a gift that's more precious than diamonds and rubies. You are the owner of a resource that is more sustainable than even the air we breathe. You are the owner of your mind. And just as being a homeowner or property owner comes with great responsibility, owning your mind also comes with great responsibility. A home can be neglected for years before the effects start to show. You can forego regular maintenance. You can skip certain repairs. And for the most part, everything will just keep functioning. But eventually, the wear and tear will show. Eventually, things will stop working. Eventually, there will be some weather damage. And eventually, an inexpensive fix will turn into a costly maintenance project or upgrade. If you're a homeowner, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like a home, when you neglect the proper care and maintenance of your mind, the effects are not seen or felt immediately. Like a home, however, eventually things will stop working. Eventually, the pain and discomfort of your life will become so loud that you must pay attention. But beautiful souls, it does not have to be this way. As I said last week, the time to prepare is now. And so if the time to prepare is now, then the most effective thing you can do is weatherproof your mind. You can wait until things get painful and difficult. You can wait until you feel like some power or force is against you. You can wait until you feel like you must be cursed with bad luck. You can wait until the wear and tear and neglect of your mind shows up in your body. Or you can weatherproof your mind. And so what I want to do is I want to share several quotes with you. And each of these quotes are about or related to weatherproofing your mind. They may not seem like it at face value, but I'm going to share the quotes with you, and then we're going to unpack them. And so I want you to actually see these. And so the first quote here is from Eckhart Tolle. The moment you realize you are not present, you are present. Whenever you are able to observe your mind, you are no longer trapped in it. Corrie, worry looks around, trust looks within. Simple yet profound. Worry looks around, trust looks within. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. Guy Finley. Our experience of life is the direct expression of what we are in relationship with in that moment. Our experience of life is the direct expression of what we are in relationship with in that moment. And finally, Jesus of Nazareth. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. So there we have those quotes, all from various teachers, different teachers, that some living, some not with us, some ancient, some modern. All of these quotes are about or related to weatherproofing your mind. So that first quote from Eckhart Tolle, the moment you realize you are not present, you are present. Whenever you are able to observe your mind, you are no longer trapped in it. I love, as we move through the meditation experience, when Pastor Yolanda reminds us to be kind to your wandering mind. And so what's interesting, what she's indicating there is exactly what Eckhart Tolle is indicating. She's reminding you that you have the power to observe your mind. And when you become aware, you have the opportunity to then come back to whatever the whatever the meditative quote is for the month, or whatever the mantra is you are reciting in your meditation experience. And so a weatherproofed mind is able to move itself out of fear, doubt, worry, and the lack thought loops. And I think this is important because it doesn't mean that you won't have those thought loops. Right? Again, going back, PY is acknowledging, yeah, your mind is going to wander. That's okay. Right? But because your mind is weatherproofed, you have the opportunity to observe it, realize it. Once you realize you are not present, you are present. Whenever you're able to observe your mind, you are no longer trapped in it. You're no longer trapped in the loop. And so then you come back to whatever the meditative thought is. Remember, no home is immune from needed maintenance and fixes. The difference is, as I alluded to earlier, is a quick and easy fix versus an expensive project that you may or may not be able to afford. And so a weatherproofed mind can get out of the present and come back into the present. A weatherproofed mind is present. This is one of the many reasons why I love the work of Eckhart Tolle, why I love the work of Byron Katie, why I love the teachings of A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles provides a pathway to observe your thoughts, to become aware when you're not present and understand what's really going on, right? And what may be carrying you in that wandering space. A Course in Miracles provides a pathway to release the thought system of fear and embrace the thought system of love. Through studying the text and the workbook lessons, you come to realize that the thought system of fear is actually not thinking at all. The thought system of fear is regurgitating the lies of the ego, which is really just regurgitating the past. A weatherproofed mind is present, and a weatherproofed mind knows how to get back to the present. So please don't fault yourself when you're aware that you wandered. Because if you're aware that you wandered, that's proof of weatherproofing. Because you can bring yourself back. You can step outside of that loop, come back to the present, come back to the thought, choose the thought that you want to be focused upon. And we have the quote from Corrie ten Boom: "Worry looks around, trust looks within." Now, if you don't know who Corrie ten Boom is, Corrie ten Boom was a Dutch woman who was part of the resistance movement during World War II. She and her family are credited with helping to rescue hundreds of Jews during the Holocaust. And she wrote about her time and what motivated her, what inspired her to do that. And interestingly enough, she was motivated by her Christian faith. Right? We know that there's a lot of, and particularly at that time, and particularly in the ways in which Nazi Germany was misusing the teachings of Christianity, there was an othering and a separation that was created between Christians and Jews. But she understood something very interesting because she had a weatherproofed mind. And so she recognized that her faith called her to be a protector of her human family. And so that's what she and her family did. And so it is interesting then to hear someone who thought and acted in that way, to say worry looks around, trust looks within. See, a weatherproofed mind is not motivated by external inputs or information. Our five senses are wonderful, useful, and helpful, and yet they're very limited. Our sight, our taste, our touch, our smell, our hearing are very, very limited, even as they're also useful. Because think about it, just like a home, just looking at the home may not tell you what's really going on. Looking at the home is not going to tell you if the foundation is intact. Looking at the home will not tell you what's behind the walls. Looking at the home won't tell you if there's asbestos or some other harmful toxins present. See, a mind becomes worried when it is overstimulated by the external and has no relationship with the internal, which is the eternal. And so this is why we're mindful of how we use or misuse our five senses. Doom scrolling on social, overstimulating ourselves with news and information, right? You're going to get the news and information. You need to know what's going on. You need to be abreast. You need to be aware of what's happening so that you can make choices, right? And decisions, just as Corrie ten Boom was aware of what was happening in her world. And out of that, she looked within and was doing something that other people weren't doing something that wasn't popular, doing something that was putting even her own family, herself and her family at risk. Right? Because we know there were many, when we look at the Holocaust, we know that there were many that were also taken into the concentration camps, many non-Jews, and many who were considered sympathizers and helpers, etc., right? That were also taken to the concentration camps. A weatherproofed mind looks within. But in order to look within, a connection must be established. Right? So wisdom must be deposited in order for wisdom to be withdrawn. So that's why last week, the time to prepare is now. Establish the connection. Establish your daily spiritual practice. It must be a no matter what practice. And so then instead of worry looks around, trust looks within. When you look within, you're going to remember what is true. When you look within, you're going to be able to use the truth you know, just as Corrie ten Boom looked within and was able to access the truth of her faith and the truth of her teachings. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. Now, one of the texts that I love, a book that if I was had to be trapped on an island for X number of years or whatever, it's a book that I would want with me. It's the Kabbalion. And the very first principle in the Kabbalion is the principle of mentalism, which simply says, all is mind, the universe is mental. You may recall I've shared Earl Nightingale in The Stranger's Secret. He puts it this way: we become what we think about. You see, you must weatherproof your mind because thought is the foundation and the currency of life. And this is why this new thought philosophy is so powerful and so necessary, because this is what we lean into and teach, that above all else, it is the power of our mind that ultimately governs what takes place in our life on an individual and collective level. And so we must weatherproof our mind because this is where it all comes from. This is where it all happens. See, you can ignore this fact if you like, but ignoring this fact leads to thinking you're cursed because it's something outside of me doing something. Ignoring this fact leads to believing in a devil or two powers. Ignoring this fact leads to thinking there's good luck and bad luck. Ignoring this fact leads to thinking God is mad at you. Ignoring this fact leads to thinking God is punishing you. Ignoring this fact leads to superstitious beliefs and practices. What we think, we believe. And what we believe, we create. And this creation happens automatically on a conscious and unconscious level. And so it's very important that we then understand why weatherproofing our mind is so very important, why tending to our mind is very important, in the same way that we know it's important to tend to a garden if we were a gardener, to tend to our farm if we were a farmer, to tend to our home if we were a homeowner. Now, the next quote from Guy Finley is related because he says, our experience of life is the direct expression of what we are in relationship with in that moment. So this then tells us that a weatherproofed mind is in relationship with all that is loving, beneficial, constructive, healing, inspiring, and life-supporting. And when we are not in relationship to those things, we see the results of them. Sometimes, maybe it's just me, sometimes I'm in relationship to wanting to be right. And so what shows up on the external is resentment, and what shows up on the external is me being pissed off, and what shows up on the external is me being snippy, and what shows out of the external is me being a complainer. And so I can ask myself, if I understand that all is mind and the universe is mental, and what we become what we think about, and I understand that my experience of life is a direct expression of what I'm in relationship to, I can ask myself, do I want to be right or do I want to be free? Because when I'm in relationship to freedom, I feel different than when I'm in relationship to wanting to be right. When I'm in relationship to judgment, when I'm in relationship to unforgiveness, when I'm in relationship to wanting to punish another, I experience the results of that relationship, even if the other person or being may be wrong. And so as I weatherproof my mind, I'm always conscious of wanting to be in relationship to being free. And the road to freedom is paved with love intentions. A weatherproofed mind is in relationship with all that is loving, beneficial, constructive, healing, inspiring, and life-supporting. We highlighted the question as well a few weeks ago, what am I entertaining? Again, this is why we're mindful of the things that we're inputting into our life. Knowing that your life is a direct expression of what your mind is in relationship with, this thing governs your choices. It's not a religious or pious choice. It's not a choice between right or wrong, good or bad. It becomes a choice for what benefits you and the life you are desiring to experience. Even in the canonized scripture in the Second Testament, it says all things are permissible. This is interesting because we think that the Bible is always about right or wrong and do not do this and the 10 Commandments. There's a passage of scripture, which is a brilliant passage of wisdom. All things are permissible, but it goes on and it says, but not everything is expedient. Now, the wisdom of that is about context. I'm reminded of a story that, an example that Abraham Hicks uses to teach about the law of attraction. But if you think about it, right, if your house is on fire, you want the firefighters to come and hook up to the hydrant and use as much water as possible to put the fire out. But if the firefighters or anyone else just showed up and did that and the house, there was no fire, you would be pissed off, right? Right? That would not be good. Same act, but contextually, it has a different meaning. All things are permissible, but not everything is expedient. And so when you understand that, then you're asking yourself, like, what am I in relationship to right now? What am I entertaining? And then from that place, I can decide whether this is a beneficial, constructive choice or not. It's not about right and wrong. It's not about being religious, abstaining because you have some kind of special relationship with God. I mean, this is even true, and I know people, eat certain things and don't eat certain things based on religion. But again, the spiritual wisdom, and this is from the mouth of Jesus, right? Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? And so it's not what we put in us that defiles us. Yeah, he talks about that. He's talking to his Jewish brothers and sisters who are very pious about what they're going to eat and not eat at certain times. He's like, it's not what you put in yourself that defiles you, but what comes out, right? Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So the things that you're saying is revealing your consciousness. It's revealing your beliefs. Again, this is why we got to be conscious about what it is that we're ingesting. Because we're creating beliefs. We're creating beliefs. And as I said, those thoughts, what we think we believe. What we believe we create, knowingly or unknowingly, intentionally or unintentionally, consciously or unconsciously. Why? Because all is mind, the universe is mental. All of life is an outpicturing of thought. And then we have the words of Jesus. Excuse me. This particular moment comes from the Gospel according to Matthew, the writers of the Gospel of Matthew. Do not store up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal. A weatherproofed mind stores their treasures in heaven. Now, of course, many teach this passage from Matthew with the old pie in the sky, sweet by and by, streets paved with gold theology, but that's not what this is talking about. Later, after this verse, he says, store your treasures in heaven. And the earth and heaven are symbols. They're symbols of the external and the internal, the external and internal worlds, respectively. So the earth is the external world, the five sense world. The world, as we love to say here in New Thought, the world of effects. Heaven is cause. Heaven is the foundation. Heaven is the place from which all things come. And I got to say this, you may have heard me say it before, but it's so practical, you can't say it enough. Because that sounds like this deep spiritual idea, right? The realm of cause and the realm of effects. Look around where you are right now. Any and everything that exists in the space that you're in first existed as a thought. It had to be thought before it could become anything. I'm staring at this camera right now. Every component of this camera had to be thought first before it could become the physical thing that I get to make use of and you all get to benefit from. Wherever you're sitting right now, whatever device or devices you may be using, thought and then thing. That's literally the truth of life. All the universe is mental. All is mind. The universe is mental. And so this is what Jesus of Nazareth is talking about in this idea of do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal. Because we know that even a well-maintained home will eventually need some even major repairs, right? Because of course, weather is undefeated against these temporary things that we build as humans, these structures that we build. You know that gutters need to be cleaned and ultimately replaced. A water heater is going to eventually need to be replaced. Here in our apartment, our water heater has been replaced twice. There's going to be roof work that's necessary. Pipes are going to have to be replaced. Eventually, your bathroom is going to get outdated. The kitchen is going to be outdated. Your HVAC system may have to be replaced. But a well-maintained mind, oh my Lord. See, this is what Jesus is talking about, why he's saying don't even try to, don't think about the external and try to put all of your eggs in that basket, if you will, because a weatherproofed mind is undefeated. This is what Marcus Garvey understood when he admonished, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. See, he recognized that he's saying weatherproof your mind because a weatherproof mind is undefeated. Yes, I know what's happening out here in the world. Yes, I know what's happening to our people. I know what we're experiencing all across the diaspora. And if you weatherproof your mind, there's power. And that's why Marcus Garvey walked through these streets. That Negro was regal. He knew who he was because he had weatherproofed his mind. This is what Sly Stone understood when he wrote the words, "Don't you know you are free? Well, at least in your mind, if you want to be." That's from the song Stand, one of my favorite songs. This is what a weatherproofed mind is and understands. It's undefeated. And so from these 5 quotes, we draw powerful insights about a weatherproof mind. A weatherproof mind is present. A weatherproof mind knows how to get back to the present. A weatherproof mind looks within. A weatherproof mind stores their treasures in heaven. A weatherproofed mind is in relationship with all that is loving, beneficial, constructive, healing, inspiring, and life-supporting. And a weatherproofed mind is undefeated. Now, weatherproofing our mind is not just for the sake of doing that, right? There's a reason why, as we're talking about crisis-proof faith and we're talking about building spiritual strength before you need it most, it's because all of the things that your mind actually does and all that you're able to do if you indeed have weatherproofed your mind. I was recently reminded of a story. It's very simple, but profound at the same time. It's an experiment that was done. They took a group of boys who were in a phys ed class, right? Young school-age students. And they brought them all together, brought them into the gym, and had them shoot free throws. And they recorded the number of free throws, how many they made and how many they missed, each of the boys. And after everyone had gone through and took their turn shooting free throws and making and missing, they separated the boys into 2 groups. In group 1, they took them away, and for a week they had them practice diligently in the gym every day, practicing their free throws to get better. Because of course, we know the power of repetition, right? And the power of practice, that if you come to anything and continue to do it over and over and over again, you're going to get better, right? At least that's the desire, that's the hope. So that was group 1. Well, group 2, they also took them aside, but they didn't take them to the gym. Instead, group 2, they taught them a relaxation technique, a mind relaxation technique. And that mind relaxation technique supported them in moving their brain waves from beta, which beta brain waves are in our waking state when we're acting and interacting right now, just as we are now. If we were to measure our brain waves, we would be in a beta brain state. The relaxation technique moves you from beta to alpha. And for those of you, if you practice the transcendental meditation technique, you know that that's a technique that's what that's designed to do. It's very easy to do. There are other ways to access that state of mind. And so by moving to alpha, they're now in a receptive and creative space. They're now tapped into the realm of consciousness from which all things are and come from. And it was in that space that they were then taught to visualize. And they were given very specific instructions to visualize themselves shooting free throws, but not visualizing themselves in the same way that we would think about if I were to shoot free throws or imagine myself shooting free throws right now, I know that I would make some and I would miss some. But they were specifically taught to only see themselves making a perfect shot every time. Swish after swish after swish. Again, group one, they practice physically shooting free throws, making and missing, with the goal of improving their overall score. Group two, they were taught a meditative technique, they were taught visualization, and they never physically held a ball or stood in the gym in front of a basket. And they visualized themselves making the shot every time, every time, every time, swish after swish after swish. So after that week, they brought all the boys back together again. They have the record of their makes and misses before, and each child goes through and they take their shots. And what they found, as expected with group one, all of the boys in group one improved their numbers. But what's most interesting is that all of the boys in group two also improved their numbers at the same rate of the boys that physically shot the basketball. What's so powerful about the mind is that in the mind, there's no difference between whether you're doing it physically or whether you're doing it mentally. And this is the power of a weatherproofed mind. The reason you want crisis-proof faith, the reason you want to build this inner strength before you need it most is because then you're able to access this realm of mind. You're able to access this well, this deep well of power. You're able to access this deep well of knowledge. You're able to access this deep well of wisdom. And so you're never worried. You're never in doubt because you know you have access to information. You will never feel like your back is against the wall because you know you have an infinite number of choices because you are connected to this infinite realm. At the beginning of this sermon, I said that you are the owner of a gift more precious than diamonds and rubies. You are the owner of a resource more sustainable than even the air we breathe. See, when you consciously weatherproof your mind, you have access to a power within you that creates worlds. When you consciously weatherproof your mind, you will live a life of miracles and dreams come true. People will think you're special. People will think you have some unique gifts, skills, talents, or abilities. But you have simply weatherproofed your mind so that you can access the riches of your mind. And so I encourage you to consider this wisdom from these various teachers. Consider this wisdom as I share it with you and teach it to you. A weatherproofed mind is a powerful mind. A weatherproofed mind is a free mind. It's a present mind. And the beautiful thing about it is no one can take it away from you. Again, this is why Jesus said, store your treasures in heaven. Moths, y'all know what moths do, right? To your sweaters, rust, everything out here in the physical world, it by nature deteriorates. By nature, it fails. That's how the physical world works. That's why we know it's not the power. It's not eternal. I grew up singing the old hymn, build your hopes on things eternal, hold to God's unchanging hand. Well, God's unchanging hand is the power of God in your own mind. It's not the hand of some being that's reaching down to you. So if you ever hear anybody sing that hymn again, know that. That's the unchanging hand. It's within you. Hold to it, nourish it, mine it. It never runs dry. For this truth, I am so very grateful. And to this truth, I say, amen, ashe. And so it is.